Have you ever felt like you cannot have disagreements and still be friends with someone? In this video, we're going to look at 3 different areas: establishing rapport with the person, seeing each other's perspective, and agreeing to disagree. First, we will look at establishing rapport with the person. When we find disagreements with friends, family, co-workers, maybe people we're in romantic relationships with, it is important for us that we can disagree well, because these are relationships that are valuable to us. So something that we can do is we can look at places of agreement. So in what someone is saying, what do we actually agree with? We can then seek to understand what are the good outcomes that they are seeking to achieve by what they are saying. We can then align our own perspectives with the outcomes that they are trying to achieve. The other thing that we need to consider with building rapport, there's body language and there's tone. When we look at tone, we want to think about, is our voice sounding angry, frustrated? Is our voice sounding erratic? When our tone of voice is off, the rapport will not be there, and so it is less likely that we will be listened to. With our tone of voice, we want to think about, do we sound friendly? Do we sound calm? So that rapport building is there. When we think about body language is really important. So are we in the other person's personal space? If we're in the other person's personal space, that can come across threatening. And that can be the kind of thing that would shut down a conversation. With our body language, we want our body language to be open. We don't want to be looking guarded. We want to come across at ease and friendly, because then the other person will be more willing to both talk to us and also listen to us. From a place of having established rapport, we can now think about how we see each other's perspectives. So the first thing we can start to do is to ask questions. We want to ask questions to understand where the other person is coming from. We'll know that we understand where the other person is coming from when we can ourselves speak the perspective that they are bringing. So we can show listening to the person and that we've understood that perspective, either by repeating elements back to that person in their own words. So maybe we might say something like, it sounds like you're saying this. Alternatively, we can summarize the person's perspective and say, okay, so to summarize what you're saying, these are great ways to show that we have been listening to the person. From that place of listening, we're going to want to respond to what the person has actually said. We can be really inclined to start out with a disagreement. However, this can turn the conversation into, well, I'm right, no, I'm right. So a better approach is we can start with the problems that we see with what is being presented. So we can start off the conversation of, oh, I've been thinking about this, and as I've been thinking about it, I've come across the following problems. I'll be really interested on your thoughts on these things. By starting from this place, we can start from a position of teamwork. This is a great way for the person to be at ease whilst exploring their own perspective and how those problems are solved. This is a great way to avoid unnecessary conflict. Now, as these things are discussed, we may find that whilst there isn't a confrontation and there is goodwill, we may just find ourselves in disagreement with the proposed solutions. This is where we will now discuss the concept of agreeing to disagree. People are individuals. Not everyone in life is going to be someone that we can just agree with all the time. And so sometimes the best thing to do is to agree to disagree and leave with a handshake or some other cultural equivalent. And this is a great way to de escalate rising tensions, because when people do not agree to disagree, this can end up with anger, frustration, and so this is unnecessary when a conversation can just be left at that point. So agreeing to disagree is a great tool for being able to move on. Sometimes you may come across someone who just is looking for conflict. They just enjoy the conflict. They like creating the conflict for whatever reason. Some could be various psychological reasons, cultural, family background, a myriad of reasons. Whatever the reasons in those situations, if we can walk away from the situation, great. But if not, at least we can end the conversation and stop it there. By stopping the conversation there, then we don't waste our time on things that are not worthwhile. So then we can move on from that, and also consider with this that this applies to trolls online. With trolls online, you don't want to feed them. If you are not responding, they do not have a name to focus on. And so it's better for your own time and attention if you don't engage with those things. There is a place for healthy agreement. Some of the best relationships that I have with people are ones where I have very strong agreements and strong disagreements. As you learn to disagree, you'll be able to build stronger relationships, because you're not just disagreeing, you're disagreeing well, you're building rapport, you're listening well, you're seeing other people's perspectives, and as you do this, you're learning as well. And I have learned well myself through doing this. As birds of a feather, we grow together.